Good afternoon. My name is Tonico Manahan, and I've been asked to talk in the first of talks by Leon Gallery of Leon Talks. My topic is market trends in art. This is like a follow-up to this talk that I gave for Leon with Maharte on art and investment, that we've removed a lot of the stuff about investment banking and figures and whatever. I grew up with a family of collectors. My mother and father were both collectors. And the idea of talking about money vis-a-vis art or collections is totally against everything with me. It goes against my brain. In fact, among old school collectors, we never talk about money. However, statistics show and everything that 80% of collectors now are looking for some sort of financial return. So, in order to just address these issues, we're creating a presentation that addresses financial return. Although our first instinct is we're collectors, we love art, and we accumulate art for our personal desires. Next slide, please. There's been an expanded interest in art. Last year, global sales according to Bjas and Art Basel reached $63.7 billion. Going to the financial return, art price shows that since 2000, there's been an annualized return of 8.9% per annum. As I will point out later, this actually far exceeds other financial assets, or financial assets in general. Next slide, please. A large part of the attention came from this painting. Salvator Mundi was something that has recently been attributed to Leonardo da Vinci. It went in auction November 2017 and it reached a record price of $450.3 million. This led to a single day increase of searches for the phrase art and investment in Google by 12%. That translates to tens of millions of additional searches within one day. Next, please. I'd like to digress a bit and talk about these two gentlemen because they are singularly important for Salvator Mundi. Dmitry Rybolovlev was the consignor in Christie's, this painting. He purchased this from his consultant by the name of Yves Bouvier. This led to something called the Bouvier affair. What happened was Rybolovlev bought, in this case, the Salvator Mundi for around, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's $8 million for Bouvier. I'm sorry, Bouvier bought it for $80 million and then he sold it to Rybolovlev for $120 million. Rybolovlev put it in Christie's and it achieved a record of $450 million. Now it seems like such a good windfall for Rybolovlev, but the reality is he had purchased over $2 billion of art from Bouvier personally. Bouvier owned a Freeport zone, which led to this insider information to be able to acquire more art on the cheap with information. And he would use this to sell to Rybolovlev. Now, Rybolovlev found out because he happened to be having dinner with the buying agent of another hedge fund manager. Rybolovlev made his money out of fertilizer, by the way. Anyway, so this hedge fund manager was talking about selling Modigliani to someone, and it turned out that was Rybolovlev. And he realized that Bouvier had flipped within a few days the same Modigliani for a margin of $40 million. So this led to his getting pissed off and filing lawsuit against Bouvier. It was called the Bouvier affair. He filed lawsuits around the world, but as is in the nature of art, he had very little documentation. Given that he had very little documentation, then the lawsuits on a large part failed. He was able to attach some things in Singapore or whatnot, but it's very hard to prove things. Now, I'm going to talk about this later, vis-a-vis conflicts of interest and the problem with representation. Next slide, please. So let's review the 10 most expensive paintings in the world. This list changes constantly, and you will notice that a lot of the characters involved are involved with fossil fuels. Russians, there's Qataris. The Qataris are more of natural gas. There's Saudis and whatever. Let's go to this fast. First, as I mentioned, Salvatore Mundi came from Dmitry Rybolovlev, who's from Monaco, Russia. And it was eventually bought by the Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism. It is now the hallmark piece of the Louvre branch in Abu Dhabi. Now, it's been there's been so many stories about Salvatore Mundi. It is still the painting, which is very controversial because only half the experts believe it comes from Da Vinci. In the 50s, it was sold at an estate sale for around $10,000. Only to end at $450 million, November 2017. Next slide, please. Let's go over these three paintings. Picasso, who is a constant in the top 10. Two Modiglianis back to back. You'll notice, no, go back, please. You'll notice the names here are Arab and Chinese mostly. And it's spread between Christie's and Sotheby's. Next slide, please. Francis Bacon, Three Studies of Lucian Freud, went from a private collection in the United States into England. Francis Bacon, his estate is represented by the Marlborough Gallery. Imelda Marcos was known to have a famous self-portrait of Francis Bacon, which is since officially gone missing, but was, from what we know, was sold back to Marlborough in 1987. Then it was sold supposedly for $6 million. So you can see this one in the auction area is $142 million. Another Picasso with the gold standard of Provenance here, David and Peggy Rockefeller, sold the private collection. Next, please. Jean-Michel Basquiat, sold from a private collection in the United States to Yusaku Maizawa. Later on, I'll be giving advice that's paraphrased from one of my favorite authors. His name is Adam Lilliman. Adam Lilliman is the son of a billionaire, and he was the first one to cross $50 million in the sale of a Basquiat. But as you can see, since then, the Basquiats have been flying. Andy Warhol's silver car crash, double disaster. Sotheby's. Next, please. Roy Lichtenstein, the triptych once again of Francis Bacon, sold to another Russian, Roman Abramovich, who reputedly has several other Bacons as well. Next slide, please. This is a graphic that talks about what involves price. I borrowed this from Ian Robertson, who taught Frank Jaime Consolidado and among others in the Sotheby's Art Institute. And aside from the quality of the slide, I wanted to bring it up because Ian has an invitation from Jaime to lecture all of you eventually, and they come in to talk about artist investment. So if you can see here, price is developed largely by what people see in the museums, Biennales, and Documenta. Then that leads, it sells out to the international art fairs, major collectors, alpha dealers, international auction houses. I'll talk about it more in the later part of this talk, but basically, in terms of the current galleries, now 70% of their sales come from art fairs, 30% go to Instagram. So to understand art markets, I borrowed this from Ian Robertson, who Jaime is negotiating with to bring in to lecture all of you on the art industry. No? He's a lecturer in Sotheby's Art Institute. So this is a copyrighted piece. It basically says that what drives prices are things from the Biennales, Documentas, the museums. It leads up towards the international art fairs, major collectors, alpha dealers, and international auction houses. Now, the nature of galleries compared to auction houses at the moment is 70% of the sales of galleries tend to be during the art fairs. People rarely go to the brick and mortar galleries. The remaining 30%, the bulk of that, actually, is Instagram and internet. Selling directly to their private people. In the Philippines, it's Viber. We always get all of these things from the galleries in Viber. It's called Unahan and whatnot.
The auction houses play an important part because there's less pull. It's all about inclusion. Because the art world as a whole is a secretive world where people with power get first crack at things. Whereas in an auction house, all you need is money. Any one of you can win any one of these paintings for as long as you have money and you want during that day. Next slide, please. Going on about auctions, Arnie Glimcher is the most famous dealer of Mark Rothko. He was the dealer of Rothko and Rothko was still arriving for 50 years. A lot of people do not understand auctions. They think that it's the definitive form of value. And they think just because I have a friend who owns an auction house, I'm always saying that auctions are the way to go or whatever. But the reality is the value of a painting in auctions is not necessarily the value of the painting. It's the value of two people bidding against each other because they really want the painting. So it's a snapshot at that point in time. It doesn't mean that if you have a painting by that same artist, you'll get the same result. It could just happen to be that there were two guys who wanted the same thing at that particular point in time, and they just bid it up against each other. And we've seen this countless times in Leon. And that adds pressure to us because people come up with the same artist wanting the previous result. When we cannot guarantee it because all the paintings are different. I lectured before, thanks to Tita Diana in Maarte, about artists and investment class. I'm not going to bore you with all the investment banking things, only because you're not investment bankers and you're probably not interested in art patrons. No? But private banks all over have been saying that you should start considering art as an investment class. That is a debate that will go on forever because there are issues against calling art as an investment class. Primarily because it's a passive investment. It has both quantifiable and unquantifiable attributes. If I say that I own this painting, all of a sudden my social status reaches a different level altogether. And there are other difficulties in calling this an investment class. This is from a private banking portion of the Deloitte, Luxembourg, talking about additional financial benefits of art investment. One, it provides a hedge against inflation and currency devaluation. If you look at the graphs, they are not correlated. Art is not correlated to the primary economic markets. You could have a downturn in the stock market, but since art is so exclusive that if you buy the best of the best, there'll be no correlation. Someone tried to do a study about the Philippines and the sell-off. The reality is, if you look at the classes of people who invest in art, vis-a-vis the people who invest in the stock market, it's a different mix altogether. A lot of the wealth of the Philippines is generated by real estate. You can ask any private banker about that. Next, if you purchase wisely, there's less risk of losing your principal. Anyone who invested in Iceland probably lost all their principal at one point. Whereas in art, taste could change, will go down, but what you paid for, if you paid properly, you probably wouldn't lose it. No minimum investment is required. Well, an example of that is art in the park. Every year they change their how little or how much you can pay for something. I've seen it gone from 20,000 to 40,000, but we've actually had people consigning items coming from art in the park and doing very well in Leon. So if you happen to like something, other people like it, it can go up geometrically. Art investments enjoy favorable tax treatment. You know, in the Philippines, we have something called the zonal value, which causes a floor on all real estate. And most families accumulate wealth by accumulating more real estate. The BIR, as far as they're concerned, just need an appraisal from someone to determine the value of art. So it's a lot more flexible, in other words. Lawyers, we tend to accumulate a lot of art because some of us depreciate it as furniture. So, for example, we have very minimal pampanga or deductions. If I buy something for 10 million, I depreciate it over 4 years, I can reduce my income tax by 2.5 a year. That's why you see many lawyers, many doctors with smart accountants buying art. Less risk because of low correlation with other financial assets. That's what I was talking about. If you look at all the graphs around the world, it doesn't follow that there's a sell-off, that art will go down. In fact, sometimes people treat art as a hedge, and the art market reacts the opposite way and goes up, especially with quality items. Art can be insured. Unlike most financial instruments, art can be insured. It costs money, but you don't stand the risk of losing it. Next, please. Now, these are the traditional challenges to being considered an alternative class of investment. First, difficulty in selling. I'm one of Jaime's best friends, but the reality is I'm probably the first one kicked out if I don't have a good enough item for you. That's only because the quality is so high already. No? And the reality is we have to develop the secondary market further. And if I have a building piece, I just won't be able to squeeze in and put it in Leon because it will affect the quality of the whole portfolio. And that's only natural. So what's the difference between consigning in a Leon or selling in private sale? No, private sale, we've been doing it for years. Private sale is a totally different process. It's tawaran na that's really nakakahiya na. Like in the 70s, you would go, the first thing the guy trying to buy your painting would say, "Huy, peke." Then they say, "Kano gusto mo ba?" Meaning he's going to accuse your painting being a fake in order to lower the price and actually purchase it for self. Lack of cash flows. Until you actually sell a piece, there's very little that you can generate from the piece. You could probably lend it, but usually in lending, it's only they'll defray the cost of the insurance and the freight or whatever. Prevalence of insider trading. I talked about those Russians earlier. That happens in smaller quantities all throughout the world. It even happens here. There's a lot of people who trade for themselves. Lack of indexable assets. There have been a lot of people trying to index art. But first of all, the private sales have no record. Second, no two paintings are alike because the problem with an index is you need to have a constant flow of returns. Sotheby's tried to they acquired the May Moses Index, which for the longest time was the index that everybody was using as a determinant. And I think they just acquired some artificial intelligence to look at some buyer impulses. But still, we can index art. The hidden expenses of maintaining an art portfolio. We'll mention that later. Move on. I went over this topic already. Galleries are really interested in primary sale. Auction houses have limited space. And selling brings out all the issues of condition, authenticity, and title. It's only at that point that people will start questioning it. Next, please. I mentioned this earlier, lack of cash flows. Next, please. Again, this is what I mentioned. The art community in general is about exclusion, privilege, unregulated. The only time that it comes out is, or the exclusion is taken out, is once you consign it to an auction. This is what I mentioned. The base Sotheby's has 80% accuracy. You add hedonic regression, which is a form of economic formula for looking at cumulative days per person. It goes up to 88%. That means that the indices are wrong 12% of the time, which to any statistician is not good enough. Next, please. I mentioned this earlier, data is not available, and no two artworks are alike. Hidden expenses of maintaining an art portfolio. First, real estate. Most of my friends don't have enough walls anymore. We've hit record prices. I think the last recorded sale in Forbes is 300,000 per square. And contemporary art, they're getting bigger and bigger. You have to You have to hang them, otherwise you're just going to lose money. Lighting, my good buddy Mark Wilson is probably the best lighting expert, and I don't get a discount. So that can go up in the millions as well. Insurance. I have a friend, PK Chotito, who's the agent for Malayan, and Willis. Willis is the #1 insurer in the world for museums. It's based on a self-determination of value, and there are so many conditions to maintain insurance that make it so expensive. In the Philippines, that includes humidity control. So if you have a paperwork, it should be in an area that the humidity is controlled. Conservation. Early in my career, I started with 19th century paintings. This famous Austrian was going to charge me ₱1 million per canvas just to fix a problem. That's when I shifted to contemporary art, because I just couldn't afford it anymore. I have a young family. Restoration, same issue. And the issue about restoration is if you're handling really old things, not all buyers like restored things. So some of them are partial to different people, some of them don't want it touched at all. Next, please. Let me bring up some Philippine issues. First is a bias against portraits. Please, done. This is a piece that I've had hanging for some time. I've lent it somewhere to try to sell it. It's because it's Andres Barrilito. It's an auction darling of the gallery. This is actually his cousin. It's not Chris Aquino, contrary to some people think. It's the first of a series where he started doing flowers. But since people perceive it as a portrait, I can only command a lower value for it. In fact, the place where it's hanging has been deluged with questions by people. I'll buy it, but can you please paint my face over hers? Of course, Andy is going to say no. Next, please. Okay, this is a preview for a show November 8th from my dear friend Derek handling Andy Barrilito. This is going to be in the National Museum of the Philippines. And this is a commissioned portrait show. This is Andres on the left, the self-portrait. And this is Doña Bea. No? So Derek was kind enough to lend me a preview just to see it. It hasn't been shown in the public. And it's a beautiful show. But, you know, a portrait is something that the family here would enjoy. That is a bias that's very strong in the Philippines because people don't want other people's portraits to come out in their house. A lot of people like self-portraits of artists, so Derek can sell the Andy portrait to me if he wants. I want to plug a show that we are curating next week. It's going to be hanging next Tuesday in Manila House. We have, it's called Beloved. It's a show of female portraits because we find that portraits are the greatest challenge to artists because you have to capture the many facets of the sitter. You capture reality. The piece here in the cover of the newsletter Manila House is actually a Luna of a wife of a governor general. We're going to be showing pieces by Manansala, Luna, Tua Marsolos. It's going to be in Manila House for a month. We'll probably have the opening reception the week after the auction. Okay, bias against paper. I want to bring this up into the room. To me, this is one of the most important pieces you ever see from Manansala. It's very time sensitive because this was painted in 1972. Martial law, when people were actually lining up for rice. It's called Pila sa Bigas. Now, the starting price of this is much lower than Manansalas of this size. The reason is because it's paper on board. But if you want to bargain, and something that will grow up in value, because again, this is a Philippine issue. This paper piece, once restored, will be worth a lot of money because it's very important. And I collect paper, I'm just very careful about it. Like the heart insurance is asking me to work on my humidity. My neighbor actually is a big paper collector and he does have humidity controlled rooms and everything. No? But I think this is probably one of my favorite pieces in the auction. And, you know, it came from the patron of Manansala, the Chongdian family. So the provenance is fantastic. And I hope this will go against the bias against paper and break the trend and get a big result. Authenticity. There's an issue in the Philippines, particularly for people copying known pieces, and this is the original of a piece that was pulled out from Christie's some years back. That's actually going on with another piece that's in the back right now. There's a bad fake going on sa Bungero sa Manansala in the back. And that's why provenance becomes so important, that we know that where it came from, tracing all the way back to the artist. Okay, next please. There's a big question now whether to go contemporary versus masters. And there's several issues. Again, because of the fakes, if the artist is living, you have less of a problem. So that's bonus for contemporary. For masters, if you can prove the provenance, you see the books are out and everything, you have a more resilient value. Why? There's so many artists throughout the years whose career changes because they got drunk, they became addicts or whatever, and they just disappear on us. If you go over the 30 years, there's so many of them. So when you're betting on a current living artist, you don't know whether it's going to maintain, whether taste will continue to collect with it or whatever. Like, this is a painting done by an artist that I patronized. He's a young contemporary artist who just won the Metro Manila Art Awards. But I don't see him that often because he always disappears on me and everything. He's a protege of Ventura, whatever, as you can see in the work, but I don't know. My only other option probably is to buy a master from someone reputable. No? Lack of materials for provenance. In other countries and whatever, we have all of these written things which will show you where it passes through or whatnot. The reality is our best materials for provenance is an oral history from old collectors that we know. And these are some of the books that we rely on. One of the books in particular is Professor Pilar's book, who again, we value his criticism things dating on when he gave the criticism because when he wrote that book, he was a very credible person, and now even his own accreditations are being faked. The reason I put a Leon catalog there is because Jaime puts the pain of writing and everything, and I collect the catalog because it's very difficult to get that kind of documentation. To give you an example, these books like Art Philippines, I think the cheapest you can find is 40,000. Same with the Manansala, Rod Parasperas at 30. Juan Lunas, but it's 25. Dalawa, not that much. They've become commodities in themselves. Because if we're not lucky enough to meet the experts who are alive on certain things, then it just goes on. Next. Okay, this is me pointing, don't mind the balls, but pointing at the record holder for all Philippine paintings auctioned in the world. It's by Luna, España, Guiando, Filipinas. Now, there's a reason why that's a record holder. The reason is it never came back here to be sold here. The winner was the National Gallery of Singapore. The National Gallery of Singapore, before they opened, would go around all the collectors here, including myself, trying to buy our paintings or permanent loan it because they don't have a collection to speak of. If you go over the collection, it's mostly on loan. Now, the reason why they can't buy our works is because of the National Cultural Heritage Act, which gives the National Museum a right of first refusal and also requires an export permit. My theory, and a lot of collectors agree, is ever since that law was passed, the price of 19th century and other cultural properties have plateaued or gone down. This painting was bought in auction in Europe and sold outside the Philippines. That's why it was never bothered by the tribe of first refusal. After restoration, whatever, I think the record's $3 million for it. So my issue with the National Culture and Heritage Act is I find it a lip service legislation. They gave powers to cultural agencies, modeled the issue, but didn't give them any money to match or whatever. So what happens is you have to beg from the National Museum. I have a best friend who was just there recently getting export permits. They're quite good except for certain items that they are criticized for if it's captures too much attention. Next please. Lack of quality appraisers. I just use this as an issue because this Parisian Cafe was subject of an appraisal by Professor Pilar, which then put it at a record price. There are some appraisers who are better than the other, but the practice that I really abhor in the Philippines is the appraisers charge you based on a percentage of the value that they ask for. So there's a basic conflict of interest to put a price way above actual market. Now this is a very important painting. It came from Lisa's family at some point, ended up with the GSIS. But the question is, if you were to auction this today in the Philippines, I don't know how much it would make. It's very important, it's significant. We should get a high value, but again, there's a bias against 19th century. Less people are buying 19th century. Next please. Okay, here's a case study. John Santos. John Santos he's probably one of the best, if not the best, contemporary artists. This is just giving an example of how things have gone up in terms of auction. He hardly produces work. Compared to other painters, he probably has 300 paintings. He has not painted figurative paintings in a long time. And his current works are based on found objects, towers, and I think in a show coming up there's going to be one painting. Now, in 2008, a 60 by 48 inch work could be purchased for $140,000. Now, as you can see in this ending, this work for the Asian Cultural Council sold at $10 million. Well and good, because when you look at it, that's a fantastic return. But the question is, so now you sold to John Santos, what are you going to do? What does $10 million buy you? You won't find another John Santos also. That's how rare it is because of the scarcity. So I believe it's a hold. I don't believe that you should take advantage of the prices. Next please. I put some investment strategies here which are very different from what people normally advise. So the first one is the cliche. You buy what you like, but throughout the journey work on cultivating taste. So your biggest investment really is based on knowledge. You have to know the markets. You have to know who is buying what, and what you perceive of going up in price. What I liked 5 years ago is not what I like now. My taste is evolving, and that should be the case with you. Follow the money. Buy the art being bought by people more important than you. The Philippines is a microcosm of the rest of the world. This is a quote from Adam Lindemann, who's a billionaire, who is probably the first guy to sell a Basquiat for $57 million. A few months after, that same Basquiat went for $110 million. But he said he needed the money. The same way he said everybody sells. Because everybody's taste changes also. And he follows advisors. Now, as you can see, following an advisor can be problematic also. Because a lot of these art advisors have conflicts of interest. Do not focus on buying cheap. The art market is a trophy market. It's always best to focus on quality. Don't buy a middling manansala because it's a manansala. Diversify risk, taste is fickle. There have been so many painters who've gone out of style. And you have to diversify the risk. If you follow the hedge fund manager's rule, one big victory should take care of all of the problems of your routes or whatever. Only deal with people with integrity. You know, art is supposed to be a handshake culture and whatever. It's supposed to be a small thing. And there are many stories out there about problems that come about. And no contract will protect you. Okay? Next. Collector's profile. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to talk about their attributes. The art mafia. The reason why all throughout the world they call art connoisseurs the art mafia is because there's a question of secret. You know, there's a secretive nature and there's connections and whatever. Godfathers tend to be people who have disciples who've been collecting over the years, and many times are a source for provenance or connoisseurship. Peggy Guggenheims, those are girls. So Peggy Guggenheim herself is known to have relationships with many artists and accumulate artwork from that. In the Philippines, we have many girls who hang out and don't sleep with the artists, but they get closer to the artists and they use them. Heisenberg, that is my icon for a friend of mine. This friend of mine trolls all the galleries at an early time. He looks like Heisenberg, Breaking Bad. And he's been able to accumulate. Archie's laughing because he knows who I'm talking about. He's been able to accumulate a huge collection worth probably 100 million, based on a few millions, just by being the first one in the gallery and getting things. And he's also my art pusher. That's why ever since I started calling Heisenberg, everyone laughs because he's the pusher of so many people. Next, please. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about this family. The Gans family. So there was this man named Victor Gans. Before he got married, he was already collecting art. And he was a man of modest means. He worked for a costume jewelry company. In 1941, he bought this piece. It's a Picasso called La Rêve. He bought it then for $7,000, which then was a large amount of money. That's the year before he got married. No? It's a very famous piece. And the Gans family was able to accumulate so many Picassos and whatnot because of the connoisseurship of Victor Gans. He'd be in all the galleries first, he'd pick everything. So this Picasso, the family kept it till he died, then his wife Sally died. They put it up for auction. Actually, there were several auctions. Christie's at that time sold the Gans family collection for a then record, now it's the third highest family collection sale, for $206 million in 1997. This piece ended up with Steve Wynn. Steve Wynn, he was the partner of Okada here. He's losing his eyesight. He decided to sell this, and he sold it to Bellagio. And he had a deal with another hedge fund manager named Steve Cohen. Since he's losing his eyesight, he actually stumbled and put a 60-inch hole over here. So he had a done deal at $140 million for this one piece. So if you look at it, this was purchased from Picasso in 1941 for $7,000. And it could have been sold by Steve Wynn for $140 million. But it never showed because of the hole. So that one time that he was drunk, made a hole, just screwed him up. So this is a picture, now go back to the Gans family. So this is what I was talking about earlier. These are the heirs of Sally Gans. They've recently come into the limelight again. Because it turns out, when they sold the Gans family collection, they actually didn't own it anymore. They had sold it to another hedge fund guy in order to save on estate taxes. Unfortunately, they used the law of Fonseca in Panama. So this was part of the Panama League that came out. So the question is if the US government is going to run after them. Because they tried to avoid estate taxes by selling it ahead of time to an offshore company. Them being Americans, they sold it for, I think, around 180 million in total. So time will tell whether the US runs after them for that deal. Next, please. Kim and Lito Camacho. This is an excerpt from the Bloomberg website. There's a reason why I am talking about them. Lito is the former head of Deutsche Bank, and he was our finance secretary. And he was featured by Bloomberg as being a collector, along with his wife, of Yaya Kusama. And the important quote here is this. I'll just read the quote. This has been our best performing asset by far, better than private equity, stocks, bonds, or property. That's our former finance secretary that's saying among his whole portfolio throughout all his life. The Yaya Kusama collection is the best thing that ever went up, because it went up between 20 to 30 times in value. Now, this is not a new concept. If you analyze the portfolio of the Rothschilds, the Mellon family, it's the same thing. Their biggest performing investments have been art. Assuming at some point you sell it. Otherwise, it's all paper gains before that. Next, please. Okay, given the Camacho's success, begs the question, should we start buying foreign art? I placed here a picture of a friend's uncle's work. I don't know if it's the right picture. Sorry. But just to announce to you, there will be a show, Namjampik, done by Leon International through his executive, Mr. Kenakuta, October 22, along with the Goshen Gallery. Namjampik is known as the father of video art, and he is known for these robots with TVs and radios. Now, there's a growing trend, and I have many collectors who've started ignoring Philippine art and buying foreign art for some reasons. One, I think the biggest reason is there's a permanent value in the dollar rather than holding something that will go up in pesos. You can argue whatever. Second, there's a wider market base. Now, I love Philippine art and I focus on Philippine art, but you cannot deny that if you're given an opportunity to buy something as important as a Namjampik, you should consider it. And you should all go to see that show if it's only an application. Look up Namjampik's career and whatnot. There's a bigger chance of things going up because they're going globally. I wanted to show Jeffrey Archer for a reason. You might know Jeffrey Archer as an author. He's like a spy novelist he's a member of parliament and whatnot. Now, I didn't place it here, but he had an art advisor who would always counsel him to buy the second best things. So instead of Monet, you get a Sissi, Underwood, and Pissarro. The one thing about Jeffrey Archer is he's very vocal that he's turned into a spectator in art. With all of the prices nowadays, he says he can't afford that to buy his own pictures. Meaning if you were to start a collection, he would keep the cash rather than that. He started with very little money. Each time he had a book, he'd buy more art. His strategy was to buy the second best, but now the second best are worth so much also. If you look at the list of impressionists that he buys, an early Botero buyer and everything, it's not too shabby. Next. Okay, I've shown this in market before, so some of you may know this guy. Yeah. But I'm sure the rest of you don't. His name is Lucian Smith. His mother's Filipina. I think she was a model for a Sabache. And for a while, he was the hottest artist in New York. He is now the poster boy of rise and fall of prices. All the billionaires bought it, and Bloomberg really showed him off. Next slide. See, he's represented by Phillips Gallery. There was a lot of speculation in his work. What he'd do is he'd load up a fire extinguisher with paint and shoot at the canvas. The value of his pieces went up as high as like 400,000. And most of the billionaire hedge fund managers own his work. But now they're going down like 20,000 each, whatever. But the point is, he's the first Pinoy who's ever reached those levels consistently. But he wasn't able to sustain it. Now, what is Lucian doing now? Next slide, please. The gentleman with Lucian now is probably the hottest creative force in the world. His name is Virgil Abloh. Virgil Abloh is a civil engineer with a master's in architecture. He was a designer for Kanye West. Then he put up his own brand called Off-White. And Off-White started in the Philippines. Virgil had, there were lines throughout just to get it. And he's now the creative director for Louis Vuitton for Men. This is a picture from a show where they collaborated. So Lucian and Virgil are together working on digital art. It's a show called Friends. Everything Virgil touches becomes gold. So expect a comeback from Lucian Smith, the one Pinoy that you've never heard of. I showed this triptych as an example of flipping. This came from one auction house and went to Leon. Next, please. Art Price shows this as the #1 example of an economic flip for 2017. When you look at it, it happened from September to December. That's just the next auction. And there was like a 30% rise. So Art Price is the database that looks at all our auction endings. And this is an example of a successful flip. Next. Well, this was an article that came up in Art Price, so just flash over it. Basically, it shows that the top 10 things sold in auction, 9 of them came from Leon. And it just goes to show you where market trends are. The highest is space transfiguration. We have a similar painting in the back. That's a 1961 Hoya. Space transfiguration was always known as possibly the best Hoya. I recall seeing it before in the artist's house. And I recall a time that there was a standing offer in the 90s for 4 million, and then it was turned down, and we sold it for 112 million. The painter's family got it. Amkyukok, the fisherman, this came from the George T collection. Anita's Duel, another Anita. Bencap, I'll show you the graph later, Bencap endings, because Bencap seems to have peaked with us in 2015, and this was the ending. It was the largest Sabel that I had ever seen. And these are the last 5 endings. Again, there's no guarantee that they can replicate these endings. It really depends if 2 guys want to get it at the same time. Next, please. This is a graph for Mauro Manong Santos based on his endings. Now, please bear in mind that this is the graph of endings of different sizes and whatever, but you'll notice the trend is still upwards. There's a lot of speculation before he died and the price is going up. We expect Mana to continue to go up because he's passed away already, and he has a very big amount of collectors who are following. Unlike, for example, let's say Santi Bose. Santi Bose passed away, the prices don't seem to be affected. I expect an upturn in Don Salbuena because there's a lot of attention on him now, and the family is planning something. But the price hasn't moved yet. Bencap. This is a Bencap from our auction house, the Larawan series. If you notice, the peak was around 2014, 2015. It's still good prices, but it's not at the level that people were just buying for anything, and it was like a spectator sport, no? Next. Hoya, as you noticed, it climbed up because of space configuration. Bear in mind that this climb in price is really for a particular type. The ones with good texture and whatnot. The ones from that series. Marcos Tignani lately has been a darling of auctions. I'm highlighting this piece because it seems to have gotten so much attention during the previews. Next please. This is a misleading graph, but still going up all the way, actually. This is based on the sizes, because we've been selling a lot of smaller things also. So this is just based on raw endings, and I still find Untitled is still, an Untitled with unquestioned provenance with documentation, but that is still a sure ball. Manansala, okay. This particular piece came from very good provenance. It's the piece that is being copied at the moment. It's a Sabongera piece. There's a previous auction record for this also. This came from the family of J.V. Cruz. Now, J.V. Cruz was known as a patron of Manansala. Mangente would stay him in London. That's why the Cruzes had so many Manansalas. If you go around the book of Rod Paras Perez, maybe a third of them are from the Cruzes. So it's among the best provenance. That's the funny thing, because this one from Chongbian, these ones, they're actually bigger patrons of Manansala, but for whatever reason, it didn't come out of the book as much. But that's... Oh, sorry, that is the Gans family. It's our place. Okay, let me talk about art rocks. So I have a good friend. His name is Steve Lim. Steve is a urologist by profession. Steve took his residency in St. Luke's. So he's part of the St. Luke's Urology Alumni Association. Art Rocks has been around since 2012 and just ended yesterday. So it started as a private sale group where he would gather backrooms of galleries in the hospital and sell to people. In 2012 when it started, there were only very few pieces. Now he doesn't buy Viber. And the reality is, our wives, well, my wife is not really artsy. Steve's wife isn't either. The thing about Art Rocks is there are over 250 members. And it's both insiders and outsiders. And many of us here are part of it. And you don't look at your cell phone for a while and the 200 messages. And Steve has started doing his own auction from the back rooms, from galleries. This first piece here in the middle is from one of the hottest artists now. His name is Buen Calubayan. It sold the other week. It's a tiny piece. It sold for over 2 million in Art Rocks by Viber. What really pisses me off is these auctions always happen when I'm in a meeting. I never get to bid. And the other thing is, while these auctions are happening, not only is Art Rocks sending me messages, but my contemporaries in art scene are also sending me messages asking about the auction as if I can look at it also. So I find Art Rocks is a very good microcosm of the market because there's so many outsiders who bid outside of the price that we think is okay. That's a tiny win. The gallery that sold that used to sell that for 80,000 about a year ago. And now it's 2 million. And you see people pushing it. The other day, there was a Dino Gabito paperwork that went for 400,000. Now this piece in the end was sold at 280,000. Hello. It's a tiny piece by a painter called Mark Aranreyes. He's someone that I've been lucky to collect. Think about the owners of Mark Aranreyes. None of us are willing to sell. And I make it bugging me about my piece. Charlene has the sister of my piece. Charlene, Junjun, and Lopez and I, we all have a 5x10 Mark Aranreyes for one series. And if you compute the Art Rocks ending, that one piece, if you do it geometrically, is worth less than 5 million for something to be paid. So it's 10 times what we paid. But that's an Art Rocks ending. It's something an outsider is willing to pay for inclusion. And Steve is a fantastic seller. Call him high priest. Okay, I've been asked to do some comparatives. I'd like to take a poll of the group. Assuming you could buy only one of these paintings, which would you buy? The Marcos Vignani or the John Santos? Now, there's a reason why these two are paired together. Marcos Vignani's price has only been going up now. He's been around the same time as John Santos. They're both Saling Pusa members. John Santos was known as the youngest of them. So I presented this to Art Rocks and I asked them for a poll because I wanted to see what would be favored. Not painter to painter, but this piece against the other piece. Because this Vignani, unlike others, looks like a John Santos. My personal choice is the John Santos because it's his wife, who I actually prefer, Pam. Number one. Number two, I don't have a John. I have Marcos Vignani's. So why am I going to get another Marcos Vignani? But again, it's a matter of personal preference. A lot of people in art rocks tend to prefer this Marcos Vignani. But let me ask the room, who wants a John Santos here? Okay, that's about 20%. What about Marcos Vignani? So it's about equal here in the room. But it's nice to have this discussion because I have never seen a mark that looks like a John. And John to me is the holy grail at the moment because it's almost impossible to get a quality figurative John. So some people will go for the mark. I will go for the John. Okay, another comparative. This is a Rodel Tapaya Burlap series versus a religious Garibay. If you look at it, they both are social commentary. And they're both very important. Tapaya has been bought lately by Bjas Art, so he has someone really pushing his value. This is the most sought after series as far as I'm concerned. It's burlap. It's early on and it's social commentary. Garibay's price has been steady, except when attorneys sell in there. Bids across the board to make it high. So Archie, which one are you going to pick? Of course you pick the Garibay. Right? Who wants the Tapaya? Oh yeah, si Aga. Tama. Don't bid against Aga, para ano naman siya. Next. Okay, this is a big question. Ani Kabigtin or Ronald Ventura? This Ventura is a very short series in plastic. This Ani Kabigtin is one of the artist's favorite. If she wanted to, she'd buy it back. It kind of looks like a series that it's still her favorite, so she wants it back. My preference probably would be to go to Ventura, but the long term, maybe the Kabigtin would be better. In terms of graphs, Kabigtin has been performing much better. But this is a unique series. But if you buy it, you have the comfort in knowing that it's the artist's favorite and she'll want to buy it back from you. Next, please. Okay, I wanted to talk about this bottom. The reason why I'm talking about this bottom is the concept of representation. This is really, it's not my personal taste. It's not what I grew up with liking. You take it for granted that Bottom is such a great guy. This was previously auctioned in Lansati for then a record for 27 million. The starting is 28 million. But if you look at us, the Asians, we're crazy for representation. Crazy rich Asians make a killing because we don't have any representation in Western media. Same thing with Black Panther for the blacks. This is a very significant piece. Now I'm going to talk about the elephant in the wall. The scene. This is a piece that was painted after the war where there were not too many canvases available. So yes, nakatahiya. That's a canvas put together. But if there's an important painting that should get a high price, it's this one. Only for the national representation. Next is. This is my personal favorite in the whole collection. It's difficult to attribute a value to this. The reason being is there are only 5 of them in existence. Most of the Osorios I know are paper, and its counterparts are mostly in the Whitney Museum. So if some institution abroad finds out about this, the price may just go forever. And you know, he was a patron of Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock died taking a U-turn from his house. And I wish I could win it. But let's see. Next, please. I need to have a special call out on the end of the catalog. I am I patronize and help MCAT in all of their activities. We have the deputy curator here, Chris Green. And the end of the catalog is filled with artist donations. And there's some very nice items there which I feel we should purchase because they partnered with Leon to be able to handle their operations for the next several years. There's a separate showroom for it. It's Leon's new showroom. It's just been refurbished in preparation for the Gagosian show. So that's going to go on at the same time as the cocktail. It's going to come here last Wednesday. So I'd like to invite you to please patronize them. If you have questions, ask Chris. It's the last items in the catalog now. Okay? Thank you. That's my Mark Iron. Open the floor to questions.
All right. So if anyone has any questions for Tonico, just feel free to raise your hand. We'll go through each one individually.
By the way, I see my classmate at the end of the row. He is the speaker this Tuesday for Crazy Rich Flips. That's Toto Gonzalez. We're classmates since grade school. He is going to be talking about spending habits of the elite from the 1880s to present. Am I correct, Toto? Would you like to give them a preview? Come on, Toto, we miss you. Any questions? Sure. Tita Diana,
So, Tonico,
Yeah.
I'm sure you read that article in the Inquirer, when was it, a week ago, about the incredible astronomical prices at auctions, and asking the question, can they be real? Or is there some, shall I mention the M-word, money laundering involved?
Okay.
What's your take on
I'll
that?
answer that.
I'm a practicing lawyer. I deal with money laundering all the time and I'm proposition all the time. And the amounts in Philippine auctions are not yet at the level where you can launder money. 100 million is nothing in terms of laundering money. Our highest is still España, Vianda, las Filipinas. That's $3 million. That's not enough. With the amount of laundering nowadays, no. It's not there. That's really a writer with a fictional mind. I mean, when you're talking Western values or Western returns, then you can start talking about money laundering. Especially when you look at the identity of all the guys selling and whatnot, they're all Russian oligarchs. There's the Qatari royal family, whatever. They're all of questionable things, but no, we have not reached that level that it's of the amount, that it's worth it. There are easier ways to launder money. But thank you, Tito. You guys want to ask about any piece? Okay? Thank you very much.